Okay, a little bit about Benkung Belly Binding. It is a Malaysian tradition, and in Malaysia they bind traditionally their women the first 40 days postpartum or longer, and it is started between day 2 and day 5 is in the first week, roughly postpartum. A Benkung Belly Bind is a 14 to 16 yard long piece of fabric, and it is just 10 inches wide. And the idea is to have basically a customized corset which can support your body postpartum. So we do, and we will see this soon, we're gonna bind from the hips up to the sternum. So it will stabilize your pelvis, because when your baby comes through the pelvis, yes, eye joints are opening up, your pubis symphysis is opening up, and you also probably notice, that your joints are getting looser. Going to yoga class afterwards, you're like, oh, I can stretch way better than I usually can, during this pregnancy. So it will stabilize your pelvis after giving birth, and it will help also your rib cage is expanding, right, and your organs are getting pushed up and back in your body as your baby grows. So it will help, to bring everything together once your baby is out or born. So your uterus is going from a watermelon size to a grapefruit size pretty quickly. And so you can imagine what it does to your organs. They're kind of like, woo, and they have to reorganize. And we have those initial 6 weeks postpartum time, and so those 6 weeks is the time where most of the healing happens, and then the organs are stabilizing in the original place again. So with the ribcage expanding and suddenly having that extra space after the birth, when we bind, we're gonna stabilize all of that and helping the organs to establish faster in the original place. It will also help the uterus to shrink faster back, and it's basically, some cultures call it mother roasting. So you have that extra fluid after, during pregnancy and after birth still in your body, and it is warming your core. Having a November baby for you, right. It's perfect. Summer can be sometimes a little bit rough because it is hot, but it will warm your core, and you will kind of sweat those extra fluids out, and it will put a little bit of pressure on your uterus. So some women notice less postpartum bleeding. It is initially when you bind, you might bleed a little bit more, but it's not causing the bleeding, but it helps the blood, to basically access faster. It will help you with your body posture as well, because you have the mid-back support, the whole pelvis to mid-back support. Often is carrying a baby or feeding your baby, where we often are kind of a little hunched over, that really can help. Some women do notice that they're initially a little bit sore when they're binding, because you move your body differently, and it really teaches your body awareness too. Suddenly in a different posture, it's gonna be a different way of moving. A really big part and a really big motivation why most of my birth clients want to do it is because of abdominal muscle separation. And so it is said around 66% of women do have abdominal muscle separation and after giving birth, and so it will help those muscles to come back together and ideally to heal, if you have a diastasis recti. Things to think about when you're starting to bind is that you want to have access, if you're breastfeeding, you want to have access to your breasts. So either you have a top on you can pull down, or you have to bind under your top, under your clothes. Same with pants. You need to be able to use the restroom, and if you're binding over your clothes, you can do that if you have some really thin leggings. That you could slide this out, and then afterwards you basically put it over, but otherwise just, basically be naked and bind under your clothes, so you can use the restroom, you can feed your baby. The other thing, I do recommend highly is to roll it up, because it's so much easier when you see tutorials. Most of them have a pile of fabric on the ground, and then while women are binding, they have to fan the fabric out, and it's so much more work, especially when you learn it. Once you have it down, it's different. Okay. But this is so much easier in the beginning, and you always want to unroll this way. If you unroll it that way, it's really hard for your fingers, and you will lose this roll eventually, which you might anyway. It usually drops once or so. So we are starting with pulling the fabric a little bit over, and I have my left shoulder. When you copy me, I see often women doing the other way. So put it over your left. Okay, so we go all the same way. So stretch the arm out, and so have that fabric just resting on your shoulder, and it's really only for that purpose, that you pull this a little higher up so it stays comfortably over your shoulder. Then you put a hand on your pubic bone, and roll towards the right side. Yeah, we all do this. And this goes right, and I probably don't have the best clothes on for this, but it's going right above the fold of your buttocks. And then you take your left hand and reach over. Basically grab the part which is over your shoulder, reach over, and then your right hand pulls to the opposite side. It's right at the line where it's on your pubic bone, but it's right in your center. And then the right hand, which holds the roll, is almost on top. And that's really important. If you have the roll like this, it's really hard to keep it tight while you're twisting. So you pull, and then you twist while you're pulling. They're almost on top of each other. And then while you pull, and you want to pull horizontally. If you pull like this, I'll show you later what happens. But so you want to keep your hands in one line. And turn, there you go.
And you're going all the way?
Yeah, and then you almost overlap. You just inch your way, little by little, up. And that's where the mirror comes in, in the beginning when you practice and don't have the feel for it yet. That helps. So, and while you unroll, you kind of pull a little bit. This fabric is not stretchy, and there's a reason for it. If it would be stretchy, it can easily cut into your skin. And the idea is to have the belly bind 8 to 10 hours a day on. Some women, they ease in, they go first, maybe for 4 hours, and then they're tired of it, and then, but the goal is to have it eventually 8 to 10 hours on. You go around again. And so the gap happens, I'm going to show you why the gap is there. So if I don't hold my hand horizontally, if I pull up a little bit like this and do it, that's when the gap happens. So you always want to, it's your mantra, you always want to keep your hands horizontally while you pull. And then you go over and around, and then while you're unrolling, you pull. So to keep it nice and tight. It is really normal that the upper edge is more loose because we are not straight, right? And this is not stretchy fabric. But that's okay because we're going to go over that spot again. And so what that does is it helps the fabric to stay in place. So the knots in front are basically like joints, right? So, and that helps that the fabric is not throughout the day just bundling up right in the middle. So once you have it down, it only takes 5 to 7 minutes to bind. You can have your partners, you can teach them how to do it. Usually one parent has a hands full, with a baby or older kids. So the other thing how your partner or husband can support you is once you're done with binding for the day and you're taking it off, I would recommend that's a person who rolls it up for you, so it's all ready the next day. Because when you're binding and when you start to bind in the morning, ideally, right, and you have to roll this up first, yeah, you might lose your window by the time it's rolled up. Your baby needs you again, and so you definitely don't want to have it over your breast. And then, there will be a certain point where it's completely, where you don't go higher in the back anymore. So it's from your pubic bone up to your sternum. So when you have your last row, just put a knot in it, and then you can tuck the loose ends either in, or another way is if you wear a skirt, you still can use a restroom, right?
Yeah.
And then, some women just let it hang down because it looks fancy. You want to make sure that the knot is not on your side or back. If you're laying down, that's not very comfortable or sitting, So yeah, that's how it looks.